Welcome to Cineights, where you get to know the best movies and series. Today's video is about the best movies of 2020. I hope you enjoy this video. Be sure to watch until the end because I'm sure you will like it. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Sound of Metal. Ruben, the metal drummer played by Riz Ahmed in Sound of Metal, builds his life around structure. A recovering heroin addict, Ruben plays in a band with his romantic partner Lou until he suddenly loses around 80% of his hearing in the middle of a tour. Without the routine of his life on the bus and the catharsis of live performance, Ruben starts to spiral out of control and checks into a rehab center run by a deaf veteran who pushes him to think about his hearing loss on different terms. Director Darius Marder takes an abrasive, thoughtful approach to formally dramatizing the effects of hearing loss through inventive sound design while never losing track of the story's emotional throwline or overshadowing Ahmed's inward, multi-layered performance. Let Him Go. After playing Superman's caring foster parents in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, where they provided emotional heft to an almost purely mythological comic book narrative, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner reunite for this comparatively spare neo-western about family feuds, bloodlines, and sacrifice. Following the tragic death of their son in a horse-riding accident, Margaret and George watches their daughter-in-law Lorna, the mother of their precious grandchild, Mary's abusive terror Donnie, who hails from a family led by an intimidating matriarch played with wild-eyed zeal by Leslie Manville. Setup is drawn from a 2013 novel by Larry Watson, and there's a weight to the writing, a willingness to let the characters' core values dictate action, and a trust that the performers will know how to play the spaces in the dialogue that elevates this above other recent violent backwoods dramas. Bad Education, a chronicle of greed, status, and vanity. Bad Education shares more than a few qualities with Martin Scorsese's financial crimes epic The Wolf of Wall Street, the story of another Long Island striver with slicked back hair, trading the stock market for the public education system. Director Corey Finley's wry docudrama, which takes its inspiration from a Wild New York Magazine feature from 2004, charts the tragicomic downfall of Roslyn School District Superintendent Frank Tassoni, a charming and beloved administrator in a rising wealthy area. When his assistant superintendent Pam Blucken gets caught allowing family members to make personal charges using the school's credit cards, Frank's world of healthy smoothies, expensive suits, and gleeful deception begins to unravel. Using a high school newspaper reporter as an audience surrogate, the script withholds key details of Frank's life for large sections of the runtime, allowing Jackman to give a performance that gradually reveals new layers of emotional complexity. Possessor, opening with a piece of metal piercing the top of a woman's head, the second feature from filmmaker Brandon Cronenberg announces the type of movie it is right away. The son of body horror legend David Cronenberg, the director splices together elements of Inception, The Matrix, and his father's own cyberpunk reality bender existence to create an art-damaged thriller about an assassin who uses advanced technology to take control of other people and carry out her assigned hits using their bodies. For her latest mission, she invades the mind of Colin, the boyfriend of the daughter of a powerful tech CEO. Simple job, right? Not so fast. The plot description, Possessor, sounds relatively straightforward. But Cronenberg piles on enough gruesome gore effects, Walter Benjamin quotes, lengthy sex scenes, and hallucinatory montages to make this a sufficiently out there experience. I'm Thinking of Ending Things, a snowy road trip, which finds a young woman traveling with her new boyfriend to the remote farm owned by his eccentric parents, turns into a journey into the hard problem of consciousness in the latest movie from Charlie Kaufman, the filmmaker who first emerged as the screenwriter behind brain-teasing comedies like Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Older and gentler in some respects, Kaufman remains plagued by life's biggest questions and tickled by occasional bursts of the surreal. Like the previous features he's directed, The Stunning Synecdoche, NY and the Puzzling Anomalisa, this new one, adapted from a novel by Ian Reid, is a less outwardly comic affair. Riddled with references and quotations, including bits of Pauline Kael and William Wordsworth, the movie resists a single reading or an elegant interpretation, embracing neurosis as a subject and a style. Sorry We Missed You. The modern gig economy is set up so that the customer rarely has to think very much about the person delivering a package to their door. Sorry We Missed You, the latest working-class social drama from 83-year-old English filmmaker Ken Loach, is a harsh reminder that those piles of cardboard Amazon boxes have a human cost. The film follows married couple Ricky and Abby as they attempt to raise their two kids, keep their humble home in Newcastle, and hold down jobs stripped of conventional protections. As Ricky's domineering boss tells him at the beginning of the movie, he's not an employee. No, he's his own small business owner and independent contractor. Loach finds dark laughs and absurdity into the convoluted language of precarity, particularly the way management attempts to sell poor working conditions as a form of empowerment, but he also captures the tender, intimate moments that occur in even the most soul-sucking jobs. Ricky and his daughter find joy in knocking on doors and leaving notes. Color Out of Space. For a certain type of moviegoer, any film where Nicolas Cage says the word, alpacas, multiple times is worth seeking out. Luckily, Color Out of Space, a psychedelic adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's short story from 1927, offers more than just furry animals and unhinged cage theatrics. Mixing hints of science fiction intrigue and bursts horror movie excess, along with a couple splashes of stoner-friendly comedy, Richard Stanley's proudly weird B-movie vibrates on its own peculiar frequency. Age is Nathan, a chatty farmer with a loving wife and a pair of mildly rebellious kids, must contend with a meteoroid that crashes in his front yard, shooting purple light all over his property and infecting the local water supply. Some space invader. A demonic spirit. A biological force indiscriminately wreaking havoc on the fabric of reality itself. The squishy unknowability of the evil is precisely the point. The Empty Man, from its lengthy opening prologue, a snow-swept chronicle of a scenic hike gone wrong, to its bracing mindfuck of a finale, an endearingly 90s attempt to pull the rug out from underneath the viewer, The Empty Man confounds expectations. Dumped in theaters by Disney in the middle of a pandemic with little promotional fanfare, this debut from filmmaker David Pryor, adapting a Boom Studios comic series after a notable career shooting DVD special features for David Fincher, is as rewardingly batshit as modern studio filmmaking tends to get. James Badge Dale plays an ex-cop who investigates the disappearance of a friend's child and soon finds himself caught up in a conspiracy that touches on a Scientology-like religion, kids on a bridge urban legends, and sinister ancient folklore. Like Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's perhaps best interpreted as a parable about the mental strain of staring at a computer screen and looking for meaning, the feeling of watching reality dissolve right in front of your eyes. The Nest, this was our fresh start, says Carrie Coon's Allison to her husband Rory early on in The Nest, Sean Durkin's severe drama of marriage and money. The way Coon delivers the line hints at a shared history, a series of broken promises and a desire to salvage a relationship through drastic change. The couple moves to London from America with their children so that Rory can secure a financial windfall. It's the 80s and regulations in the English markets are loosening. But the plan doesn't work and soon Rory is spending money he doesn't have to maintain a lifestyle Allison doesn't even necessarily want. His reckless financial risk-taking feeds her natural cautiousness, which slowly turns into resentment and anger. Interrogating the way class anxieties forged in childhood can determine patterns of behavior, Durkin's movie is as perceptive as it is tense. Surely, in short stories like The Lottery and novels like The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson conjured unease, tension, and queasy strangeness that made them difficult to put down. Fittingly, Shirley, an adaptation of a novel by Susan Scarf Merrill, examines a highly pressurized moment in the author's life that makes for occasionally nerve-rattling viewing. As played by Elizabeth Moss, Jackson can be temperamental, brilliant, and cruel, especially to Rose and Fred, the newlywed couple that move into the paper-strewn house she shares with her controlling professor husband. Where Decker's previous exploration of the creative process, the dizzying Madeline's Madeline, took an often nonlinear, combustible approach, Shirley retains some of the stuffy mechanics of the writerly biopic, particularly in the scenes of Jackson typing away at what will become her novel Hangsamen. But Moss's mischievous performance, the subtle interplay between the two women, and the feeling that the movie could tilt over the edge into chaos, chasing darker impulses and rolling around in the mud with Decker's roaming camera, keeps it from falling into many of the traps set by the often worshipful, great artist, micro-genre. Dick Johnson is dead. Watching Kirsten Johnson's kind-hearted dad, Richard, Dick Johnson, get crushed by an air conditioning unit, struck by a car, and knocked in the head by a construction beam provides a startling thrill. These strange little experiments, staged by his filmmaker daughter and carried out by seasoned stunt professionals, form the structural backbone for this tender documentary, a work of memoir sprinkled with touches of the surreal. Instead of just making a portrait of her father, a cheery psychiatrist from Washington, Johnson constructs a film that attempts to confront a universal fear by delving into matters of process. Death, terrifying and unconquerable, becomes an art project. Like with an episode of Nathan For You or, sure, even Jackass. There's a delicate tonal line being walked. Why does Dick agree to go along with these elaborate stunts? Simple answer, he loves his daughter, becomes increasingly clear as Dick Johnson is dead unfolds. She Dies Tomorrow, the strobing lights and shifting colors that flash across the at crucial points in She Dies Tomorrow signal a psychological shift that can't be fully explained or articulated by any of the characters. They all know something is wrong, unavoidable death is approaching, soon, but they can't exactly put a name to it or make others empathize with their anxiety until the reaction spreads. And this condition spreads fast, starting with Amy, who just moved into a sleek new house, and jumping to her obsessive friend, and then that friend's family and on and on. Is this a medical thriller stripped of jargon or a dark social comedy of manners stylized into a more abstract register? Quibbles about genre feel less urgent as the movie builds its peculiar world of dune buggies, leather shops, and swimming pools. Director Amy Seimetz scrutinizes behavior with a careful eye, and she brings joy out of the performers even in dire circumstances, but the movie's big questions are metaphysical. Tenet, despite all its time travel shenanigans and theoretical physics exposition, delivered by elegantly dressed characters as they stroll through scenic locales and dine over cups of tea with Michael Caine, Tenet has the attitude of a more straightforward action movie. John David Washington's unnamed CIA agent gets a world-saving Ethan Hunt-like mission, which he accepts and then goes about trying to accomplish without wrinkling his suits. That convoluted mission allows director Christopher Nolan to dip his toe into international spycraft, a genre that meshes well with his logistics-obsessed filmmaking style, and string together a number of wildly impressive set pieces, including a raid on an opera house, a heist that involves crashing an airplane, and a ridiculous desert siege built upon a handful of conceptual gimmicks I still don't understand. Small Axe, director Steve McQueen's anthology of 5 films chronicling the lives of members of London's West Indian community from the 60s to the 80s, careens between moments of struggle and triumph. On one level, each film examines a different political or social system. Mangrove takes on the courts, Lover's Rock surveys the dance floor, Red, White and Blue confronts the police force. Alex Wheatle dissects prisons, and Education takes the viewer inside a struggling school. That might make each individual film sound like an academic exercise, an attempt to unpack one theme or institution at a time, but McQueen's moral focus and his sensitivity to subtle shifts in human behavior gives each story a startling complexity. Oh, it's tempting to highlight one favorite in the series. Rock, laced with music and romance, is a uniquely joyful entry in McQueen's filmography. Axe deserves to be seen and considered in its often stunning totality. Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, the theme song from Cheers succinctly summed up the communal appeal of the local bar. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. On the surface, this genre-bending documentary from brother filmmaking team Bill and Turner Ross is a straightforward celebration of that concept, one that explores depths of feeling, patterns of behavior, and types of language you wouldn't see on a network sitcom. Chronicling the closing night of a Las Vegas dive called Roaring Twenties in November 2016, into the shadow of Donald Trump's election victory, Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets introduces a series of bartenders and barflies, observing them in verite style as they watch Jeopardy! On TV, sing songs, and get in arguments. Australian regular takes acid, a cake gets smashed. Da 5 Bloods, exploding with historical references, directorial flourishes, and Da 5 Bloods, exploding with historical references, directorial flourishes, and flashes of combat action. Spike Lee's war epic Da 5 Bloods is a movie that embraces the inherent messiness of its subject matter. But Lee, pushing the movie in sharply funny and emotionally fraught directions depending on the demands of the scenes, refuses to approach the treasure of Sierra Madre-like setup in a straightforward manner. Instead, the movie pings between the MAGA hat-speckled present and the bullet-ridden past, using his older actors in the flashbacks as their younger selves to underline the strangeness of time's passage. While some of the detours might test your patience, particularly once the men discover the gold and start arguing over what to do with it, the powerful ending, which becomes a moving showcase for the great Delroy Lindo, makes this a long journey worth embarking on. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, the Port Authority bus terminal provides the backdrop for a good deal of the drama and the waiting in Eliza Hittman's powerful portrait of a teenager traveling from Pennsylvania to New York to have an abortion, a procedure she can't receive in her home state. Quiet and watchful, Autumn observes the world around her from benches, bus seats, and doctor's office chairs, dragging an enormous suitcase through the drab interiors of various midtown locations. She doesn't tell her parents about her pregnancy or her trip. Joined by her cousin Skylar, who wants to be a supportive friend and sounding board. The two don't talk much. The movie's most striking image shows the two holding hands in a moment. Shared vulnerability, like their bond transcends language. Time, phrases like, time is what you make of it, time flies, and time heals all wounds, get turned inside out by this exquisitely constructed documentary. Time chronicles the life of entrepreneur and activist Sybil Fox, rich as she lobbies for the release of her husband, Robert Richardson, from the Louisiana State Penitentiary, otherwise known as Angola. Filmmaker Garrett Bradley blends modern footage of Rich, taking care of her children, delivering moving speeches, and running her business, with intimate home video archives shot by Rich over the span of a lifetime. One moment, you might see a giggling child, in the next shot, that child is a watchful teenager. Few movies display such a total command of craft, summoning complex ideas and grappling with fundamental truths, while telling such a profoundly moving story. Backrow, when a movie tells a story about a community joining together to fight off outside invaders, there are certain shots, moments, and heroics you want to see. Bloodshed, vengeance, and justice all have a place in Backrow, a feverish, quasi-dystopian genre mashup centered around a fictional Brazilian city in the country's northwestern region, but the film doles out its cathartic showdowns in an inventive, dizzying manner. After a stretch exploring the geography, political realities, and daily routines of the city, a scheming American villain arrives and, in an inspired bit of casting, he's played by B-movie staple Udo Kier, reveling in the cruelty and complexity of the role. Leading a team of aspiring would-be commandos, the type of people who view killing as a novel thrill. Position gets tucked in odd narrative corners, the tactical demands of the situation shift, scenes play out intense, curious confrontations. First Cow, Kelly Reichardt's evocative and wise tale of frontier life, begins with the discovery of two skeletons in the woods. An unnamed young woman and her dog echoing the human and canine pair at the center of Reichardt's 2008 road story Wendy and Lucy, come upon the bones in the modern-day Pacific Northwest. Then we flash back to a time when the Oregon Territory was far less developed, an era of perilous opportunity and rampant exploitation, and meet Cookie, a bashful and unassuming cook for a team of unruly fur trappers. Eventually, he befriends the wandering King Lu, a Chinese immigrant who claims to be fleeing some Russians. The two stumble on an opportunity to make some money. A wealthy landowner brings the first cow to the region, and Cookie and King Lu decide to steal the cow's milk at night and use it to bake sweet honey biscuits, which they sell at the local market.